Turbine pits to hold Hoover Dam's 17 big hydroelectric units were built into the powerhouse. Generator installations began in 1935. The first generator, Unit N2, began commercial operation October 26, 1936, to serve the city of Los Angeles. In ones and twos, the generators filled the pits as demand for electrical energy in California, Nevada, and Arizona called them into service. Finally, in 1959, manufacture and installation of the last generator, N8, began. For 25 years, the N8 pit had lain dormant and silent, except for the hum of other Hoover generators. Now, as more generating capacity was needed, contracts were awarded for the generator's manufacture and installation. Plants throughout the nation fabricated N8's many parts. The design of N8 followed that of other Hoover generating units. It is a 95,000 kilowatt, 60 cycle, 16,500 volt generator driven by a 115,000 horsepower turbine. Falling water from the reservoir, which spins and powers the turbine wheel, is controlled by a huge butterfly valve, which permits the water to flow to the turbine from the feeder penstock. Weighing 2,000 tons, N8 parts were shipped to Hoover Dam on 60 rail cars. Arriving at the canyon rim overlooking the dam, the parts were lifted by cableway out over the canyon and down to the powerhouse. Parts descending into the gorge on strands of cable were familiar and almost daily sights, reminiscent of previous installations. And the main cableway operator was the same one who had helped install and operate the cableway during the dam's construction in the early 1930s. Others likewise had worked on the project throughout its construction. Inside the Nevada wing of the powerhouse, technicians assembled and installed the mass of electrical cargo. Crews prepared the N8 pit to receive the new generating unit. They removed temporary slabs over the turbine and relief valve outlets to the tail race or river. Liners assembled in these openings were set in concrete. The turbine's scroll case sections were lowered into the pit. The sections were leveled, bolted together, and aligned. The completed scroll case was then anchored in concrete. Later, the turbine's water wheel, attached to the bottom end of the shaft, was installed inside the case. The butterfly valve was assembled on the generator floor and later connected between the feeder penstock and the turbine's scroll case. Meanwhile, the generator's two main parts, the rotor and stator, took form. Steel lamination plates were stacked around the rotor and stator frames. Coils were locked into place and electrical connections were made. The powerhouse's overhead cranes lifted the completed 254-ton stator from its erection bay and carried it gently to its foundation over the turbine pit, where it was lowered and bolted into place. The 466-ton rotor was moved from its erection bay and lowered inside the stator. The rotor was then joined to the turbine water wheel by a 38-inch diameter shaft, 63 feet long. Guide and thrust bearings and other parts were added to complete the assembly. After test runs, N8 went on the line December 1st, 1961, to serve the state of Nevada and to complete the Hoover power plant, raising its capacity to 1 1/3 million kilowatts, keeping it as one of the world's largest hydroelectric installations. As the last sounds of construction faded into history, Hoover Dam had cost $175 million. Less a deferred payment of $25 million allocated to flood control, Hoover Dam's cost is being returned to the federal treasury at 3% interest from the sale of hydroelectric power.